Hello everyone and welcome back to newearth.land. When we wake up in the morning, it feels very much as though you're in a room or you're in a house. But are we in the room or are we the room itself? Are we not space and time itself? Is all not mind, the universe, mental? It seems to be the case when you have an experience that we think of as a spiritual awakening. But to the uninitiated, of course, this sounds batshit crazy, and that's what most people probably think of me when I start talking about this. Or they think, "Oh, what's he been smoking?" Well, I don't smoke actually. I never have done, and but what I have had is a Satori instant awakening in my life, and you begin to very much realize that reality is, as Albert Einstein said, an illusion, albeit a persistent one. A persistent illusion maintained by the structure that we find within the cranium, right? Our minds, or more so our brains, are just receivers. We are receiving the signal of mind. Mind is not something that's contained and constricted within the cranium. Our existence is actually infinite and we are omniscient. Awareness is everything. Awareness is God. Consciousness is all. All is mind, the universe is mental. And so what we actually begin to realize is that we're almost tricking ourselves into this inside-out universe where we feel like our existence is somehow behind these eyes, behind the skin. But it just feels that way, and that is the illusion. And it's not that sort of like often you hear people say, it's Maya, it is illusion, but it is. It doesn't mean, though, that what we're experiencing isn't real. It just means that the nature of reality itself is actually illusory. Just like when a magician shows you a trick, you perceive it as illusion, but the magician knows fine well what he's doing. And that's what I feel like is God is doing. Like it somehow buries itself into matter to rediscover itself anew. And that's really what we're on a path of, is rediscovery into the oneness of who we actually are. And it's kind of incredible and sounds, well, just very much magical. But really, this is the true nature of reality, and it's sort of based on divisions of sorts, which emanate from a higher vibration that we might think of as love, which is a sort of a metaphysical gravity. And we descend through these planes and dimensions and densities till we get to these lowly planes of physical reality, where everything just feels concrete. Everything feels objective, everything feels separate from one another. But again, this is because we're living in this sort of like fragmented, fractured state of consciousness, which we can actually transcend. And that's really what all of these esoteric traditions are training and teaching people to do, behind closed doors, of course, because we're not privy to that, because it's been stolen from us. It's what we have inherited throughout the history of human civilization, but it's been removed from Western education. So we are getting trained very much by design in a way that incarcerates the soul and makes it continue to think that it's this separate small little me, waking up, got another day of this shit to live through. But really, like the weirdness is that we're already out there. It looks like, I don't know, say for example, you go to a music festival, you hear the sounds, you see all your people, you see your friends. What if you're already out there? What if you are the experience itself? And it's like we're sort of hallucinating this separation. And I always think of the Jill Bolte Taylor, who's a neuroscientist, had the experience of her left brain going offline courtesy of a tumor. And it kept coming on and off again, and she kept feeling this separation, and then she'd be constrained again inside her body and then out. And this is what people that have had this experience, for many, many years, like not least through near-death experiences, which I watched, a few of those videos. But this is really much like, Christina Aguilera said it best. She's a genie in a bottle. You got to rub it the right way, right? So if you think of your body as this lantern, and if you know how to sort of escape it, you can. And this is really what Freemasonry is doing, is teaching people how to transcend and escape Solomon's temple, how to build Solomon's temple, how to do it in a balanced equilibrium so that the soul is emancipated from the body. And, we call this the chemical wedding, of course, if you're familiar with these traditions. But that's really what we need to be. It all sounds very strange, and perhaps some people are quite scared of these things, but this is a natural scientific process that can be discovered and is being discovered at this time. And of course, people do research into lucid dreaming, and we see that there's more activity going on in the prefrontal lobes. And this is, I think, why they're called Neo in the Matrix, because it's talking about the neocortex being illuminated and what you become awakened to when you do have this balance of mind. So we are this genie in a bottle that can be released back into a more loftier state of consciousness. And that is the non-dualism that is often discussed in Buddhism. And really, I'm talking about this because what we're going to be doing on this channel is we're going to be showing people ways of actually creating this harmony and balance in the mind. And ultimately, it's about activating what has been suppressed, which is the divine gift of the divine feminine. Okay, this is really the feeling, the beauty, the awe, the childlike curiosity. All of these things have been sort of made secondary to the primary subjects of maths, English, science, geography, all of this kind of like convergent thinking, where it's just data sources and memory. And we've been taught to think that this is actually education and this is intelligence, but it's actually just intellect, and it's a very masculine form of awareness. And so, what we need to do now is revisit and bring back to life the sacred feminine, and realize that this is absolutely fundamental if we are to evolve as a species, and realize what true divine intelligence is. Bring that back in to the education system. Obviously, we have the 7 liberal arts, and we have the trivium of logic, grammar, and rhetoric. These things are sort of harken back to a time when we were more aligned with the true nature of reality, and sort of understanding, like in times of the Renaissance and then the Enlightenment. But then things come along and we've sort of thrown the baby out with the bathwater, I feel, perhaps in the 18th century, where we began to become, we felt that a lot of the spiritualism had become very superstitious, and people became very skeptical of this. And this is when science began to flourish. And there's absolutely no problem with our scientific endeavours. It's just that at this time they're not balanced, and therefore the psyche is restricted because it's not reaching this equilibrium, which is what allows this spiritual seed to flourish and to blossom, and for us to become the fullness of humanity. As Dostoevsky said in Notes from Underground, that science is not enough to fulfill the deeper human need. We need to sort of embrace a lot of what William Blake was talking about, and the ability to see that nature is actually imagination itself, and a lot of these thought forms which sound incredibly almost absurd to Westerners, because we simply haven't been exposed to this way of thinking that's very much more familiar in the East. So, this is ultimately all in the name of expanding human consciousness so that we can resolve a lot of the problems we're faced with, notably grave suffering at every turn, both physically and mentally. People are trapped in dead-end jobs. People are just thinking, what is the point? This is just so tiring, so monotonous at times, isn't it? I want people to realize that, we are the ones that are actually in the driving seat here. We are the 99%. We can change the world if we want it to be changed. And I would say that, shelter, energy, food and water, those things should be human rights. That's the first thing we should do if we're actually going to progress towards the Satya Yuga and get ourselves out of this Kali Yuga, which we are in the process of doing. That's why a lot of this transformation is occurring at this time. But it's a long journey, and I'm hoping to sort of perhaps expedite some of the developments that we can see in human society, and not just have it all done for us by these psychopaths such as Elon Musk, and such as a lot of the politicians, and of course you're probably all too familiar with a lot of these rather nefarious characters in society, let's say. So if you're interested in that, then do check out newearth.land to discover how we can actually liberate ourselves and create conditions in society that allow us to engage more so in the imagination on a more regular daily basis, and we're not trapped in this rat race of, slaves to the wage, and we should no longer be rent slaves. So that for me is the inevitable direction for humanity. And if you're interested in learning more about that, then do check out newearth.land. I'll see you in the next video.